We're at GDC catching up on a game called Oriental Empires. It's a civilization building game, empire building game set in ancient China. Can you give us the quick pitch? What sort of game is this?
It's very much a civilization building 4X game, but it has a very strong thematic and historical elements. Couple of the main features are the ability to zoom in really close and really step into your game world and see your soldiers, your settlements, your peasants really up close. We also have some interesting battles where you see the battles being fought out between large armies right on the map, blow by blow.
It is interesting because this is a very sort of well-established genre, of course, the 4X, and we sort of know that. But you are sort of tweaking it to make sure that it's a more historically correct experience, if you will.
Yeah, we tried really hard to bring in all the Chinese elements. China's becoming so important in the world today, and people don't know very much about its history, so we really wanted to tell that story. So we concentrated a lot on Chinese inventions, Chinese ideas about philosophy and religion, and just showing the development of China and the major historical trends over 3,000 years of history.
Yeah, I was interested in that as well. What is sort of the motivation to pick this era and this part of the world, and what your connection and the team's connection is to this?
I guess my personal connection is that I live in Thailand, and that was part of the inspiration for doing a game set in Asia. But as soon as I started researching it, I just realized what an absolute treasure trove of history there is in China. It's just so much of it. It's so fascinating that I just become really enthusiastic about bringing this story to people.
And another thing that I think is interesting is the way you're treating technology, because technology trees in this sort of game, it's sometimes it's a mechanic that's not really engaging. It's just something you buy sort of to get new units, etc., etc. But you do have some interesting ideas on how to sort of make that a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, technology trees work great in space games, not so much in historical games. So what we've done is that you've got 4 different areas of technology that you develop in simultaneously. So it's a bit more realistic in that people are developing new ideas in philosophy at the same time as they're developing new ideas in farming or metalwork. And it's our vehicle for bringing in a lot of the Chinese cultural ideas on religion, on philosophy, things like ancestor worship or the mandate of heaven, as well as famous Chinese inventions like the compass or gunpowder.
I also thought it was fascinating to hear that it's also tied into how fast you can expand and sort of your ability to manage your faction, your empire.
Yeah, a lot of the story of the rise of civilization is that people become more accepting of living in large societies. People started off in small villages and gradually developed into kingdoms and then to empires. So a lot of the technology and culture is the sort of philosophical glue that holds this idea, holds these things together. So you get the idea that maybe your king is some priest who intercedes with heaven, and therefore you should do what he says, or various something like Confucianism, where everybody knows their place and their relation to everybody else. And the way these work in the game is they build up your authority score, and the authority score determines how many settlements that you can have. So this limits the rate at which you can expand and stops your empire snowballing.
It is that is one of those things that when you play these kind of games, there are different kinds of players. There's the expansionist who wants to cover the map. But typically there are different winning conditions as well. How do you treat winning conditions in this game?
There are 4 ways to win the game. The obvious expand and conquer everything. There's what we call the Son of Heaven, where you convince the majority of the other players to recognise you as the one true emperor. Usually that will require a little bit of military persuasion, but short of all-out conquest. There's a cultural victory condition for people who like a less aggressive play style, and to do that you have to concentrate on building temples and palaces and developing the map. And obviously to do that you'll need to build up a strong economy to be able to support all those things. And then finally you can set a time limit in turns for the number of game turns, and then there's a point score at the end, and whoever has the most will win when the time limit is up.
You do have 2 different game modes. You got the historical starting point and one more open-ended sort of sandbox version. Can you explain a little bit about how that works out?
Yeah, the random maps are fairly similar to Civilization. You know, it'll just make a map and scatter your starting positions around it, and you can go and explore and find out what's there. There's also the option to play on a historical map of China with a historical setup. Obviously the game is looking to cover 3,000 years of history, so it can't really cover all the events that happened. But what it does do is it tries to cover the historical trends. So you have the trends of the peasants versus the nobles, or the farmers versus the nomads, or the gradual shift in power from the north to the south. So you don't know exactly when, for instance, you're going to enter the warring states era, but the game will gradually drive you towards some point where you're massive industrialized warfare. And who will win depends on how you play the game.
All right. What's the plan ahead with this game? Where are you at with it, and when do you plan to have it come out?
I think we're looking at release sometime in the summer. It's in beta testing now. So we'll see exactly how that goes. So we don't have an exact date, but in a few months.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.